Chapter 7. Faith and Knowledge. The human being's long walk on earth after the accident was tortuous and painful. To reach our present day at the present level of consciousness, several attempts have been made for man to regain some of his lost consciousness. Religions played an important role in this attempt to bring man back to the spirit world. But unfortunately the great role that religions should play was lost over time. The religious conductors diverted it from the original route, in order to earn profits and gain power over the great mass of unconscious people. By this the religions that were supposed to liberate the human being, through the approach of the spiritual world and the increase of the understanding of the reality of the other life, began to imprison it more and more in a tangle of teachings that leads to confusion and not to enlightenment. In this imprisonment of man, for the purpose of making profits, the principal ingredients used have always been and still are, the existence of sin, of guilt, of hell as the residence of the defaulters and of the devil himself as a cruel executioner of the offenders. Because of all this, of course, the reign of fear sets in, fear of death, fear of punishment, fear of the Creator Himself, our Great Father. It is clear, therefore, that the incarnate man tends to withdraw more and more from the spiritual world, either through misinformation or lack of access to the other side of life, or even out of fear of what might happen to him if he loses his physical body. There is yet another serious aspect of the teachings, which is denying the existence of the spirit world, blatantly preaching the non-existence of the human being as a being independent of his physical body. Parallel to the religious current, the river of science runs fast. Science based on measurable data and phenomena demonstrable by our known means, is not aimed at pure and simple understanding but knowledge. In the pursuit of consciousness is worth before the understanding and then the knowledge. Knowledge is circumscribed and limited, while understanding is transcendent, and whoever holds it traverses the seas of consciousness in search of the infinite ocean of perfection. The science of the unconscious man could not, of course, contribute much to raising the level of consciousness of the human being in the physical body. It follows the rhythm of human reasoning and is subject to the same flaws in our brain functioning. He often affirms what is not, and denies other times what it is. In this world of conflicting information, science tries to explain religion while religion tries to correct science. Man sometimes believes in science, at other times he relies on religion, but at no time does he have enough understanding to realize when one or the other is playing out of tune in the great reality of creation. And so, the centuries go by and the man goes walking or the path of science or the path of faith. Through the path of science he acquires knowledge of what is placed in the world of matter, computing their errors and correctness. On the other hand, following the path of religions, he walks the slippery path of belief. He receives the summons that he must believe the word of one who imparts to him teachings and information that can never be proven nor denied. Man has no alternative, he has only to follow, trusting in the well-spoken word of someone that, sometimes, in moments of suffering, comforts but does not heal. The healing of the sufferings of our soul only happens when we get the medicine of the understanding. The human being, in truth, is at a great crossroads. Religions go through great discredit in the present times because in the eagerness to reap the profit they have killed the tree that gives the fruit. Science, in turn, is not able to help man to have conscious access to the spiritual world, and without this access to the other side of life there is no future for humanity. Without this conscious contact with the extraphysical world, man will plunge even further into unconsciousness. This is because he will identify more and more with his body while accepting its yoke. If there is no organization that keeps alive, in the incarnate human being, this record of the existence of the spirit world, the future may be chaos. As the organizations that care for spiritual patrimony here on earth are becoming profitable businesses, man begins to deactivate his belief. Without believing in spiritual investment, he becomes immobilized in the body. Stuck in material immobilization, he does not invest in the acquisition of consciousness. If faith is in the process of worsening and knowledge is deficient, then man needs help. In this state of pitiful spiritual poverty in which mankind finds itself, Spiritism is the external investment that can build again the great monument of hope. Being neither science nor religion, but a path, it invites all of us to the great journey towards the Creator and the creature. But Spiritism, to play this role of the highest relevance, needs to undergo some corrective surgeries and some adjustments. It is necessary to perform, in the foreground, an adaptation of the Spiritist language to the man of the present times. The language used today, including several basic teachings, was introduced and allowed at a time when incarnated people were on a very precarious mental level. Today these people have a much higher mental level and are able to achieve the true meaning of the teachings as well as to discard the ancient forms of spiritual communication. It is quite true that language needs to be changed, but it is also true that the task is quite difficult. Let us see why. The human being has access to his own physical body, when incarnated, through the energetic field that surrounds the brain. It is through this mechanism that it transmits its wills to the physical organization so that it takes action to carry out the command, or even stops it from acting in a certain way, also obeying a will. Let us now think of spiritual communication through mediumship. In order to have access to the physical body, the spirit must use the energetic field that surrounds the brain of the incarnate. It happens that all the records of the person incarnate, linked to this material life, are in the energy field. Thus all communication from the spiritual world passes through the records of the incarnate, where it is decoded, analyzed and sent according to the data recorded there. The Spiritism teachings have been stored in this energy that involves the brain through direct perception in the physical body, whether by reading books, participating in Spiritist works, guidance from incarnate to incarnate, or even based on the mediumistic message itself. But in passing through the energetic field of the incarnate's physical body, spiritual communication is compared to the records already existing in the field, and if it is incompatible with them, it will suffer the adaptations necessary to assimilate with what was recorded there. Therefore, there lies the difficulty of making the alteration of the Spiritist language through mediumistic means. In attempting to make these changes through the mechanisms of mediumship, there will always be this adaptation to what already exists in doctrine. But how to solve this problem? Creating new records with the appropriate changes here in the body itself. That is the main reason for this work that we have been called upon to elaborate, through this beginning of change in language. When introduced through a book, for example, people will have a greater opportunity to use their reasoning and absorb this new way of understanding and expressing Spiritism. In doing so, incarnate persons who will serve as intermediaries in spiritual communication will no longer censor this natural language and this new way of understanding the Spiritist teachings, because they will have already received in their records these new data. This explanation answers many people who will be asking why this change of language was not introduced by mediumistic means. In this respect, we can say that in addition to the censorship of the incarnate human being who receives spiritual communication, there is the censorship of the controlling organs of Spiritism here in the material world. If spiritual communications come to the physical world and did not fit the standards already known and accepted, they can be censored. Knowledge is infinite, and the dosage to be given to man must be according to his ability to understand. But this does not mean that what was offered to the incarnate man brings the matter to rest. Likewise, the way in which the teachings were put here needs a revision, not by defect or error, but because there is now a greater capacity for understanding of the receiver. We are approaching moments of great transformation. The earth will not be the same, and the human being who inhabits it with certainty cannot be the same in his way of feeling, thinking and acting. The animal man must necessarily become a rational man. For this to occur, he has a very difficult task ahead, which is to learn to master his material body. This learning may take one or more incarnations, but it does not matter. What are some dozens of years, or centuries before the eternity of life. A drop of water in the ocean? Maybe not even that. The important thing is to start. Trying to understand the other side of life in a slightly different way is a good start. And this good beginning will depend on the attachment that man demonstrates to the concepts that up to now prevail in Spiritism. If these points that need to be changed are like a plant with strong roots and deep, difficult to be changed, then this man will take much more time to understand the new Spiritism we speak of. On the other hand, the man who trusts to use his pure reasoning and not his belief will have a greater facility to understand the foundation of truth that exists in everything that has been explained so far. All people without exception will come to this new understanding of Spiritism and the spiritual world. Some will arrive first, some later, but all will surely arrive. Finally, we want to leave the record that everything that has been said in the previous pages is a beginning of the change that must occur in Spiritism. Days will come when we will have to rewrite this book by lengthening and deepening the concepts and clarifying better this new language that we need to adopt. The time, at this moment, does not allow the greater detail, since we must begin the walk,